Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the AFN 128, ANT 128, Black women in the diaspora, Black women from Africa to the Atlantic world, Black women in the US, Black women in the Caribbean, Black women all over the world. So I always, change the direction of the conversation depending on the week that we're in. So if in a week we're discussing Black women in Africa, I introduce as Black women in Africa. If we're discussing, experiences of Black women in the Caribbean, then that week will be Black women in the Caribbean. If it's Black women in the US, then, the week topic will be Black women in the US. So I welcome you today to the commemoration of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And, this week started, or the 10 days, the 16 weeks started from November 25 or November 25th. And yesterday, November 28th, was the Wear Orange Day. But because today is our class meeting date of November 29th, so we're also commemorating that with our orange headscarves and shirts and drapes and items in support of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Earlier, I was discussing with the students before our guest speaker arrived that Black women around the world are the number one that have faced, the number one set of females that have faced a lot of violence, a lot of challenges, even the ways that they're treated in the 21st century is still counted as violence against women. And today, whether we're looking at women on the African continent, women in the Americas, or women right here in the United States, we can all agree from the course content or the learning resources that we've shared in the last few weeks about, the myth of the Black woman, the struggles of the Black woman, the ways in which the Black woman continues to struggle to meet this Black ceiling, break the glass ceiling, sorry, and the ways in which, Black women are viewed, how they're treated, whether in the workplace, in the family environment, or in the community in general. Of course, there are many Black women around the world who have broken that glass ceiling, many Black women who have contributed immensely to overshadow the, stereotypes or the norms or those treatments, but the numbers are still significantly lower in terms of achievement. If you compare to, let's say, white women in the United States or other women around the world. So today, I want to thank all my BMCC students and your college students joining us to commemorate these 16 days of activism by showing your support to end gender-based violence by wearing your orange, having your orange items in the background, or, letting others know that gender-based violence is not a cool thing. So I would like to introduce Sister Mabel Ngoe, who is a member of Sister to Sister International. She's a board member of an organization called Sister to Sister International. And I've had many wonderful occasions in collaborating with Sister to Sister, especially during the yearly CSW conferences at the UN. And this conference takes place every February, March. It's the Commission on the Status of Women Conference. And in 2023, we're going to be having the 67th Commission on the Status of Women Conference at the UN. And what is this Commission on the Status of Women? Of course, there's a commission as part of one of the agencies at the UN that looks into the progress of the world's women, from health issues to education, to politics, to, looking at the barriers that women have had around the world, and also to create opportunities for breaking these barriers, or to making sure that women are included in decision-making processes, especially in the matters that affect them the most, such as in poverty reduction, maternal health, their own personal health, food, farming, water, education, and so on and so forth. So every year there are priority themes, which means things going on around the world affecting women, and that each government needs to, take charge of, to make sure that, you include the women and girls. It is not a matter of a man's world or learning about patriarchal, but the source of life of the men and boys is the female, which needs to be taken care of and included in decision making, especially in those that affect them the most. So Sister Mabel and I have worked together for, let's say, 10 years now, for the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN. And she's here today to share with us a presentation on the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So I'm going to give her the floor for her to do a self introduction. And then from there, we're going to run her presentation slides. So welcome, Sister Mabel Ngoe from Sister to Sister International.
Thank you so much, Prof. It's such a pleasure to be here, talking to these young people, especially about a topic that's so dear to me. It's important that we all play a role in this. So as you've heard, my name is Mabel Ngoe. I'll add Takona in that. And I always tell people I'm a global citizen. So when you talk about African women in diaspora, I was born in Cameroon. I'm married to a Kenyan. Right now I live in the States. And home for me is where I find myself at any given time. So these issues of, whatever I'm going to present, at least, I've experienced it on different platforms, different continents. So I want to believe that, whatever we're going to discuss today is going to help each one of us to take a stand and do what we need to do. So that's just a brief introduction on my part. So for Sister to Sister, I'm the chair of the Global Affairs Committee. That's how I work with Professor Remy to do what we do at the CSW to advance the rights of women and girls. So this is going to be very few slides, 5, 6 slides. It's going to be short. I want it to be interactive. I'll just share briefly, and then we can have Q&A. And what is really important for me is at the end of the day, for us, all of us to live and ask ourselves, what can I do to ensure that violence against women is stopped? Because we need to stop it. So on that note, Prof, I'm going to let you run the slides for me, and then I'll just speak to them, if you don't mind.
Thank you so much, Sister Mabel, and I'm going to share my screen now. Please let me know if you can see the slides on the screen. Can you see the screen? Can any of you see the screen?
Yes, no. We can see you, Professor.
Yes.
I can see it.
You cannot? Okay, let me stop and share again. How about now?
I can.
You can?
Yeah,
can you see Sister Mabel?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. All right.
I need to.
You can go ahead. Oh, what I did, I just added, this information, your name and, our class info.
Okay, that's fine.
On it, okay. Yes.
All right. Yeah,
so hold on, let me.
The topic, the 16 days of activism, how it started, what it's all about, and the role that each one of us can play, to end violence. So basically, the day runs 16 days. It runs from the 25th of November, which is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And then it runs all the way through to December 10th, which is a World Human Rights Day. And it was purposely chosen to run between those 2 days to make the point that women's rights are human rights. So linking, the elimination against violence and human rights, because sometimes, women are treated, like a prof said, as second-class citizens. Our rights are not always important. So these dates were chosen specifically to link that, to make the point that women's rights are human rights. So it's from 25th to the 10th of December. Next slide, please. Yeah, as much as we've heard this stat, it's always good to talk about them sometimes. We really need to do this. But before I give this slide, I just want to briefly, before I talk about this slide, just briefly talk about, what is violence against women? We all know, but then it happens in so many different forms, and sometimes we don't even recognize it. So it could be verbal, it could be physical, it could be emotional, and it happens everywhere. That's what we call intimate partner violence. That is violence that happens to us, people that we know in our home, which is supposed to be the safest place for us. But for many women and girls, their home is the most unsafest place for them. It happens, at our workplace, it happens in schools, and increasingly it's happening on our digital social platforms. And the sad part about all of this is that not as bad as these statistics look, very many women do not report violence or even seek help of any form. So these stats look bad, but then they just present a smaller picture. The picture is really, is really bad. So we're saying 1 in 3 women, or more than 1 in 3 women, will experience gender-based violence during their lifetime. I don't know how many female students we have here, but then just think about that. If we're 3 of us here, then 1 of us have experienced, if not all 3 of us, but we're talking about the probability. And then we say more than 5 women or girls are killed every hour by someone in their family. Think about it. Your family is supposed to be the most immediate support system for you. But we're saying for many girls and women, that's where the problems come. We're saying less than 40% of women who experience violence will seek help of any form. I've just talked about that. It's because of the stigma. Sometimes you're like re-victimized when you speak up about it. What did you do? How were you dressed? Were you rude? Did you provoke? So it's like double victimization. So many women, girls don't seek help. And now we're saying 56% of women and girls were intentionally killed by intimate partners or family members. This was from a study carried out in 103 countries. Think about it, 56%, that's a high number. And then we're saying 45% of women reported that they or somebody they knew experienced a form of violence during COVID. Now, when you look at these statistics, Professor Remy had said something about it. Normally, for a long time, these issues have been like, issues of the so-called underdeveloped world, the third world, or uneducated women, but violence happens everywhere. But then, of course, your socioeconomic background will make you more vulnerable. If you're poor, if you live in, if you don't have economic resources, if you're dependent on somebody. But then when you look at the violence that happens in the workplace, that is across board. When you look at violence that happens in the family, that is across board. While 2.5% of women in Africa will be more susceptible, but then the number increases as you come to the West, and especially during COVID, there's a lot of literature that talked about how violence, increased during COVID, especially in North America, the Western and Southern Europe. So this thing is real, it happens everywhere. And the reason why we celebrate the 16 days of activism is just to shine a light on this violence and then let the world know what we all can do to prevent it, because it is happening. Some people are talking about it, but many of these victims don't even have, a place to go for resources to help them survive. So that's why we celebrate. And the campaign was started 31 years ago in 1991, a group of scholars. And I'm proud to say one of the original founders of that campaign was my former boss. I mean, we all respect her from that, and a Zimbabwean woman. It's good to know that, we have women from Africa who've done something to, that the world is celebrating today. And 31 years on, we still have a campaign, and somebody will be asking why. It's because these stats are real, the problems are happening. And every time the world context changes, violence increases for women, whether it's in areas of conflict, whether it's climate change, COVID-19, and humanitarian settings, issues of poverty, disasters. Every time you have those conditions, they are all rife for violence against women who are always like, at the receiving end of this violence. Because their assault happens in the private, what we call the private spaces, the home, which is supposed to be safe. Yes, men do get assaulted, but a lot of the assault will happen in public spaces. But then, when you compare the figures, it's relatively low. So when you look at the current world stage today, there's a lot of backlash against women's rights around the world. Anti-feminist movements are on the rise yet, but then there are attacks against human rights defenders. We'll see all these laws, being passed all over the world, push back on women's rights. And it's crazy. So the more we push forward, the more the world is pushing back. That's why the next slide for me, the next slide. Next slide. So what the UN Women is saying this year, against all the backlash that we are experiencing, we have to push forward. If you've watched the news recently, you hear of all the anti-abortion laws, you hear of all the rights, like the women's body right now and their rights is becoming another battlefield for them. It's bad enough that at home, you're being subjected to violence. And then now when we look at the policies that we're making, the struggles that we have laws that are pushing back. So we must push forward against the pushback. Next slide, please, Prof. So, 16 days of activism against violence against women. So every year, the United Nations Secretary General chooses a theme based on what is happening at that time. And then from the general theme, different countries or different organizations or different associations will come up with their own sub-theme. And for some countries, they take it a step further. They'll have a specific thing they're celebrating every day for the 16 days. So the bigger the direction comes from the UN. So for example, this year, the theme is Unite, activism to end violence against women and girls. So last year, it was End Violence Against Women Now. In 2020, it was Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, Collect. Then we've had Generation Equality Stand Against Rape. We have Orange the World, Hear Me Too, Leave No One Behind. All of this, just to continue to shine the spotlight on what is happening in our bedrooms, in our houses, in the cover of darkness, to bring it out to the open and to let everybody know that for every woman, every statistic that are listed, there's a story behind that, there's a person behind that, there's a mother, there's a sister, there's a niece, there's a cousin, there's a friend, and we all know somebody who is going through that. And we all have a role to play to make sure we stop the violence. Next slide, and so I'm happy to know that New York City started celebrating 16 days of activism in 2018. So like I said, the campaign started in 1991. So 3 years now we've been celebrating, and I'm happy, everybody is getting on board. So I know, Prof, you shared this link, for, when I saw the video, but then just in case anybody did not watch it, I want us to watch it again because it's important that we keep repeating and we keep hearing, what we all need to do. So I'm going to let you play the video for the benefit of those who did not get a chance to see it before the class. Thank you.
Just a second, I'm gonna upload the video.
Okay. And I'm happy to see all the orange. So the color orange, it symbolizes hope and a brighter future free of violence for everybody, especially for women and girls. That's why the color orange was chosen. Yeah. So for everyone who is wearing, orange today, that's what you're saying. I want to paint the, orange the world. I'm standing for a violence-free world for everybody, because nobody has the right to live in fear. We all have a right to live free from violence. Yeah. Okay.
November 28th, we're going orange in support of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign which starts November 25th and runs through December 10th. City Hall and other iconic sites across the city are lighting up to raise awareness. New Yorkers, join us and wear orange to support survivors of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is abuse that exploits unequal power relationships between genders. It can happen anywhere in our city and to anyone. It takes many forms, whether it be verbal, physical, or mental. This is a public safety issue that impacts us all. To those who suffer gender-based violence, I want you to know you are not alone. The city is fighting to end gender-based violence in every borough. We are committed to preventing and eliminating all forms of violence against all people. Every New Yorker deserves safe spaces and healthy lives. Find out ways you can help at nyc.gov/16 days. Together, we will continue to build a city where we are safe in our homes, workplace, and communities.
Thank you, Prof. Let's go to the next slide. I hope as you're listening to the, to the mayor speak and to what I've said so far, you're reflecting in terms of like, it might sound such a big task, like it's been 31 years, we're still talking about it, it's the work of the UN or official leaders. No, every single one of us has a role to play, no matter how small, to make sure we end, this problem. So I think on the next slide, I just want to, point to like, how we can engage. Prof, next slide. What we can do in our little corner, because every little action that we do will support this fight. So I picked this 8-point whatever's from the UN Women website. So you had the mayor talk about different activities happening in New York. Your professor talked about it. There's so much that is happening. Just by wearing your orange today, you're making a statement. If you post your orange picture on your, the social media platform, like your prof was saying, you are already taking a stand. If every single one of us did it, we're shifting that needle a little bit. But unfortunately, as the world context changes, the situation, changes, but we can all play our part. So you can volunteer for any organization that's doing whatever, to support violence against women. You can be an advocate on social media. We all have social media platforms. It doesn't cost much. There's so many handles that are going on on these issues. You can post wherever, just add your voice to the, to the activism. It doesn't have to stop with the 16 days, but to be nice for the 16 days because everybody else is doing it. You can join a global citizens journey of action if there's one around you. So that's why it'd be important to look at what is happening in New York City. What is the mayor talking about on their newyorkcity.gov? Just click on there, find out what is happening. Start something on your campus. Just, whatever it is you can do. You can donate to an organization that's supporting survivors of gender-based violence. If nothing else, you can educate yourself on gender-based violence. It's so important because it starts with every single one of us. And then spot the signs of gender-based violence and know how to help. Take action within us and then show up in person like you're all doing. So every single one of you today has contributed the 16 days of activism. And I hope, this discussion today will help you in terms of like, looking further to see what else is happening, at least in your city, on your campus, where you live in the city. Take part in it. And if nothing else is happening, then you can be that change that we want to see in the world. I want to leave you with a quote. If you can go to the next slide, Anthony. So I started by saying that these two days were linked. 25th of November, which is the International Day for the Elimination Against Violence Against Women and Girls, and the 10th, which is World Human Rights Day. And what we're doing in that space is making the case that women's rights are human rights. We are human. We're here to stay. We make up 50%, if not 51% in some countries of the world. We're not going away. Yet, women are being killed in the places where they're supposed to be safer. You look online today, there's a lot of violence happening on social media platforms. Many times we don't talk about it. But a lot of this stems from us not respecting, or society not respecting women's rights. So this quote says, not every act of disrespect leads to violence, but every act of violence starts with disrespect. So just think about it. Yes, I'll disrespect you doesn't mean I'll violate your rights, but for every act of violence that happens, there's an element of disrespect. So what we need to do as individuals is start normalizing the fact that women's rights are human rights, start promoting gender equality, respecting women's rights as human rights, whether it's a friend, whether it's your mother, whether it's a sister, an aunt, cousin, respect people, respect women's rights. And once we respect women's rights, then violence will be reduced, because disrespecting that right is the beginning of violence against women and girls. So there's this one video which I'm going to put. It's just a powerful video of young people, just doing their own parts in celebrating this day. There's so much happening. I mean, there's hundreds and thousands of activities happening all around the world. All you need to do is just go online and you'll see what's happening. So let's just end up with that video, if you don't mind, and then we can open up for Q&A. Thank you.
Discover a new pipeline of passionate law school applicants with the GRE General Test.
Save big and sleep better. Cyber Week deals are on now at Raymore and Flanagan.
In the quest for gender
We
equality,
can't see the video.
it feels as though every step forward.
We can see.
I'll stop the share and start again.
Okay. Did you get the link for the video?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
In the quest for gender equality, it feels as though every step forward is followed by 2 steps back. In the grip of war, global pandemics, and climate change, the world has not become safer for women and girls. And the hard-won progress made by women's rights movements around the world faces a reversal, a pushback. Increasing assaults on women's right to make decisions about their own bodies, mounting obstacles to girls' education and leadership, rising cases of disappearances and of women being killed just for being women. Violence against women and girls, online or offline, cannot and will not go unchecked. Now's our moment to add momentum to the growing movement against violence, oppression and repression. Against the pushback, we push forward. By using our votes to elevate more women at every level into positions of power, by enshrining the right to freedom of choice and education, by protecting disempowered communities and advocating for survivors' rights, and by taking action to end all violence against women and girls. The only way forward is forward.
Thank you.
You're
That's where
welcome.
I end my presentation for today. And remember, together, we'll all end violence against women and girls. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Mabel, for your presentation. Let's appreciate her by showing our, round of applauses, either in person or via, your icons on your screen. That was very impactful. And I'm sure you do have a lot of questions, so I'm going to open the floor for, any of you that may want to comment on the presentation, or if you have questions for our guest speaker today, Sister Mabel Ngoe, visiting us from Sister to Sister International and making a presentation on the 16 days against gender-based violence, which started on November 25th and then going to end on December 10th on International Human Rights Day. And again, thank you so much to all of you for your orange items or clothing that you have put on or displayed in support of these 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So I'm going to leave the floor open for you to ask any questions or any comments that you may have. Or Sister Mabel, you can just call randomly and ask questions from any of the students.
Not really for me. I'm asking questions. What is your, I think this, I'm going to throw this out and then I'll let people respond. If not, then we can call. What was your what was the epiphany moment for you? Did anything stand out for you during that presentation, and what was it? And can we ask, does anybody want to volunteer, or can I call somebody?
Hi, Michelle here. I mean, in the presentation, it said that you guys are empowering, protecting disempowered women. Is that specific to certain country, or just like, is it an organization located in different countries? It wasn't very specific, but I assume it's like places like Iran, where there's a bunch of violent acts against women currently, and they're being oppressed over there. So assuming it's like areas like that, or is it like an organization that's located like all over the world?
Okay, so my organization, that video was from the UN Women. So the United Nations Gender Entity works for women across the world. So they shot that video. But then the picture on what's happening in Iran right now. But when we talked about pushback for women's rights, all you need to do is look in our backyard here, all the anti-abortion, laws that are happening. So yeah, it was just that specific video. But then for me, for my work as sister to sister, we work across the globe, and mainly we're centered in the US, supporting women and girls of color in the US, especially young girls. Yeah. If I got the question right. But in terms of the video that I portrayed, I think the point that the UN Women was trying to make was the fact that there's a lot of pushback for women's rights, and Iran today is where we're seeing a lot of that, and the laws that we're implementing here back home in the US against like abortion and all that. But then it's an organization that's global. They work in all 170, I don't know how many countries of the world they are. Yeah.
Okay. Is there like a social, I know there's like you can advocate over through social media, like there's some lists you can do to do our part. What's the Instagram like social, because I know they probably have Facebook, but do they have like an Instagram?
Okay, they would have, and they have all this okay, maybe I can liaise with Remy, send her some information that she can share with you guys later, so you can go online, look at it, and see what are some of the things you can post on Twitter, on Instagram. They have a whole toolkit to support the 16 days of activism. So I'll be able to share that. Yeah.
Okay.
Professor, yeah.
Okay.
But in the meantime, you can do your bit. You are in your orange. Educate yourself. You can just post. I did. I think that's where we want to. So while the UN is doing what they're doing, every single one of us has that responsibility to do what we need to in our own little way. And then together, if everybody in the next 16 days, or how many days left around the world, is wearing orange, is speaking up, is identifying violence, is helping somebody, then we all work towards a collective goal. So the role of the UN really sometimes is just to like do the spotlight, highlight the need for government and everybody else to do, and then tell us what we can do to, you know, to contribute to that. Because you know somebody, or if you don't know somebody, you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who is experiencing verbal, mental, emotional, physical violence, and they need help. Yeah. I hope I answered
So
that.
let me interject briefly. Thank you so much for asking your question, Michelle. There's a website that I had posted on the announcement page on Blackboard for the New York City Commission on Women's Rights. And, you know, they were, you know, that's where you found the information for the 16 days of activism of what's going on in New York City. But I do have a website from the UN Women of a section where, you know, there are a lot of information that you can use in promoting these 16 days. So I've shared my screen. And if you go on that website, of course, you know, you navigate to the various programs and activities on there. You know, you can use any of these images. You know, they're usually keen on people promoting, you know, the information so that it will get wide circulation. Here at the bottom, get involved. There are a number of ways in which you can get involved. You can stay informed by, you know, signing up for the updates or emails. You can participate in some of the campaigns, you know, and if you read through many of these links, you know, it tells you what those campaigns are, how to, you know, get involved in any one or all of them. You know, there's also information on, you know, joining the different networks. There's information on social media where you can have, you know, toolkits or images that you can upload into your own social media pages and show your support for gender equality, show your support for empowering women, show your support for inclusion of women and girls, show your support to ending violence against women, show your support for the role of men and boys in ending gender-based violence, show your support for generation equality, and so many other activities that, you know, the program or campaigns are about. And of course, you can always donate to the course. You can donate to the work to make, you know, the promotion of information reach a wider pool of audience, or to have enough opportunities out there through many of these campaigns that will favor or benefit the lives of women and girls. And also on our own Blackboard page for this class, I did include an announcement with a link where, you know, you can find more information. I'll bring that up also. I'm not sure if you were able to see through the previous screen. And this is specifically for New York City, you know, information on 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And this was the video we had first watched during Sister Mabel's presentation. So this website also that I'm going to copy and paste in the chat, like the UN Women, you know, link, has short videos, a lot of information on attending or hosting your own event, like we've done in class today, areas around the world or around New York City where they're celebrating the 16 days of activism. You can download a campaign toolkit to find out more of what that 16 days is about and how you can start your own campaign or join a campaign. You can spread the word. You know, there are a lot of, you know, media graphics that you can use as background on your social media pages that will promote the support of 16 days of activism against ending gender-based violence. And of course, you know, the campaign is not limited to only 16 days. So imagine saying we only have 16 days in the world where we stop gender-based violence, and any other day people can still do what they want. No, no, no. It's just saying that during those 16 days, they're enlisting or soliciting support of individuals in New York City and around the world to ensure that we bring into the limelight, activities that, people can know how to get involved in ending gender-based violence. So those are those two website links that I've posted in the chat. So you can continue with your questions or comments for our guest speaker.
I got a question, Professor.
Okay.
First of all, my name is Mohammed, and I want to thank you for your presentation, Professor. I just want to know if there is any resources where women can speak up, can talk about the gender they're facing every day. For example, we remember the Me Too movement who occurred a couple of years ago. I don't know if there's a kind of things like this that's that's happening.
Okay, thank you for that question, Mohammed. So I just want to piggyback on what Prof said earlier. So there's people whose job it is every day, 365 years a day, to advocate for ending violence. That's their job. So they do it every day. The UN, is the governments, it's international organizations, but then this particular campaign, what we want to do in these 16 days is just spotlight the fact that, hey, this thing is still happening. So let's all come together, whether you're a footballer, maybe you can wear an orange armband or something. So just like the Me Too movement, this campaign has been going on for, like I said, 31 years, 16 days, 31 years. But then it's the work where you have women's rights defenders whose job it is to fight for women's rights. You have the UN Women, you have international and national NGOs. But what we're asking for, what this 16 days is asking for, almost like the Me Too, is like, everybody, let's band together and do what we need to do. Because somebody will think after 21 years, by now, after 31 years of the campaign, normally you start a campaign and it's supposed to end at a certain point because you've achieved what you set up to achieve. But with violence, we've realized as the world context changes, the violence intensifies. We're not talking about climate change 31 years ago. Now we're talking about climate change, and we're seeing the effect that it's having on, on women, how it's perpetuating violence. 31 years ago, we didn't have COVID. Then COVID happened 3 years ago, and the violence shot up. So the whole purpose is like, just keep it alive, keep it active. While we have all these activists working on it, for these 16 days, let's all band together as a world and spotlight it, and then see what we can do in our own individual corners. That's why the campaign is like, it's a running campaign that involves everybody everywhere, because we all have a role. But outside of those 16 days, there are people whose job it is, I'm sure even in New York City, they have programs to support survivors of violence. But then the biggest thing, when I was showing the stats, the biggest thing is the fact that even though the statistics look grim, they are worse because so many people do not report violence. So what the Me Too movement did, in my opinion, is that it made a lot of people come out more to start speaking, more about it. And then we got, people listening. But for me, oftentimes when you look at the Me Too, it's elitist. But then the violence I'm talking about happens to that woman in the village, it happens in the subway, it happens. We want everybody who experienced violence to be able to speak up, and the world will listen, not just when your perpetrator is, a star or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Professor. Also, I want to know, I think it started, when I saw on your presentation, I saw like until 2013?
91.
91, okay. Did it bring like any real changes? Because I think last year or the past year, I saw something like an Iranian girl got killed because she was not wearing like hijab, Muslim clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how you guys, I mean, organizing them yourself to fight against this kind of situation from happening, prevent it. I don't know if I'm clear enough or I'm trying.
I'll let Prof say what she needs to say, but this is my thing, and this is what makes the work we do sad, because the more people talk about it, the more it happens. And I think for me, what the case in Iran, that girl who got killed in Iran, she was not the first one. It's happened before, but what is happening now with the world is we're not sitting quiet anymore. So there's that, they're going to push us back, but we're going to keep pushing forward. And my thing oftentimes for that one Iranian girl who got killed, I showed you the number of women women and girls who get killed by partners, even here in the US. So it's something that is happening. But I think for me, the good thing right now is there's more, not more awareness. Many people are willing to speak up. And I want to acknowledge the Me Too movement. I think it did something, in that regard, because one of the biggest problems we've had with the issue of violence is, sometimes an educated person gets, slap kicked and abused, and they don't want to tell their colleagues, I'm a feminist, how am I going to tell people I was kicked? But you should know your rights. So that's why we keep doing what we're doing. And the Me Too movement helps in a way, I believe, because many more people are talking about it, many more people are getting involved. And I get excited when I look at, I'm not, maybe if we didn't have Me Too, New York City will not be celebrating 16 days of activism. I don't know. But a lot of it is happening. But Mohammed, you're right. The issues do not go away, they get worse. The more the more activism we do, the more pushback we get. So we just have to keep pushing for, because I believe if we're not doing this for the last 31 years, the situation will be worse. That's just my belief. Now people are speaking up, many more people are getting involved, and we want everybody to get involved as well. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Don't be shy. This is your opportunity to pick the brain of our guest speaker.
And I'm going to ask, you can do a show of hand. Do any of you on this, do you know somebody who's been violated, a woman or a girl who's been violated? Do we know them? Yeah. So it is real. It is happening. It is, yes. And what we're saying is, what can I do in my little space to protect me, to protect my loved ones, to speak up, to identify the signs, to know when somebody needs help, to know who to reach for help. So those little things, in my opinion, is what is going to make the difference, and it's what 16 days of activism is trying to tell us. Like, there's so much happening. There are people working every day, but even in your own everyday, for this 16, this part of you can join this campaign. But throughout the year, if you can, when you do your social media stuff, they have all these toolkits. Just find a way of of engaging, because as long as we are not equal, nobody benefits, because this violence, it affects every single one of us in every other way, even if we don't admit it. So the world we're pushing forward for is a world where there's no violence, because violence costs us so much personal loss. It costs the city a lot, it costs the state a lot, it costs your school a lot just to deal with the violence. So if we all work towards equality, respecting everybody's rights, knowing that we all have a space in this, irrespective of my gender, my race, my sexual orientation, just respecting that, and then give everybody a space to live free, to reach their full potential. Until we do that, the world, will not be a better place for anybody, because when one part hurts, everybody hurts. One part loses, everybody loses. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
I think that's my last comment, but I think that was really important that in the presentation, the mayor mentioned that the violence is not only physical, but it can be also verbal. I think that's really important. That's something, we're not talking about the last years. We're always thinking that violence is only physical.
Yes.
But it can be also verbal. I think that was really important.
And it's emotional too. Sometimes for me, emotional violence could be worse than physical in certain circumstances, because once somebody makes you believe that you're nothing, you know, they say sticks and stones will break your back, but then words, the things you say to somebody, the way you make them feel. I might not have any physical scars on me, you know, like a swollen jaw or whatever, but then psychologically, I'm done. So the emotional violence, the violence that happens on social media platforms is not physical.
Bullying,
Yes, and it's happening.
cyberbullying.
It's psychological, it's
Yeah.
emotional, it's verbal, and it is bad.
Yeah.
And it's affecting younger and younger and younger and younger and younger kids.
Even in schools, in the
Yes.
lunchroom, on the
Yes.
playground,
Yeah.
you know, there are many violence around, you know, that are committed every day against girls and women. You don't have to be beaten up by a partner, even though the number one type of violence is the physical one, where we see a significant increase of older women in, you know, partner abuse. But, you know, we're seeing also with young girls, you know, there's a lot of cyber bullying. There's a lot of bullying in the cafeterias, in the lunchrooms, at schools, in the playgrounds, in the gyms, even on their way home, in the corner stores, everywhere. So that women are, or girls, young girls are tormented almost on a day-to-day basis. And unfortunately, many of these acts of violence go unreported because, you know, once you psychologically manipulated a person, their mind begins to think that, oh, maybe they may have caused the situation, or, you know, from, you know, happening, for happening to them. And many girls and women think in this direction a lot, you know, especially when they're being emotionally abused. They refuse to report the abuse. They think, oh, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I caused him from, you know, talking down to me, or abusing me emotionally or psychologically, or manipulating me, or even physically abusing me, you know. So there are a number of ways in which each and every one of us can get involved. A few moments ago, Sister Mabel asked, you know, how many of you have witnessed a person being abused before? And you raised your hand. You know, many of you asked how you could get involved in promoting these 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And I posted some website links on the, you know, in the chat for you, and also on our webpage. You know, we'll be happy to continue the discussion beyond this, you know, webinar talk today. Incorporate some of the learnings or, you know, research materials into your day-to-day lives or activities. Share with other people who may be going through some form of abuse or violence or the other, and they do not want to report it. You know, be a friend or a listening ear, because most times what women or girls need is somebody just to listen to them, to hear them. You know, that's why during the Me Too campaign, we had hashtags Me Too, I hear you, because if you don't hear the person, there's no way you can help them, you know. So, and we're not talking, you know, you going physically to be that psychologist or therapist, you know, to the person or the people, but just sharing contacts of where they can get the support or the help would mean a lot. Keep wearing your orange, keep supporting the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and don't give up. If yourself, you're going through any of these situation or any of these violence, know that, you know, as your professor at BMCC, I'm a certified faculty, you know, safe zone ally. And what that means is that if at any point in time you're being bullied on campus or even anywhere close to the BMCC or any CUNY campus environment, and you know, you need somebody to talk to or somebody to refer you to services on campus or outside of campus, to be the lending ear to hear you, to know that, yes, me too, you know, I stand against gender-based violence, and I'm in support of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. You have my email, you have my contact information. You can come to office hours, make an appointment to speak to me, and I'll see ways in which we can work with you. So for many of you who may be interested in what's going on outside of the classroom environment, there are a number of activities going on in New York City during these 16 days of activism against gender-based violence that you can check the website that I've posted on the announcement page, and feel free to attend those events, share them with others, and participate with many of the organizations that are putting these events together. So before I end our discussion, I see two students have raised their hand. I believe Ariel, and I wasn't sure who else had their hand raised, but Ariel, go ahead with your question. Oh yes, and Jennifer. So let's take Ariel first and then Jennifer.
Okay, thank you, Professor. I just have a quick question. I know like sometimes it's hard to talk to someone that you know that's been abused or like verbally abused. Like, so is there like a script? I know like sometimes like it's hard to the words to come out, or like, is there a script to go by that you could possibly get them to tell somebody?
Yeah, I think many organizations have toolkits of scripts or ways in which you can actually speak to people who are going through any types of violence. As a matter of fact, some organizations have made it their mission to make sure that if you observe or witness anyone going through that, you don't contact immediately the person or go near them, because guess what? The abuser, if they're crazy enough, God forbid, they usually would go after the person that is trying to help or support the person that they have violated or abused. So you want to make sure that you're safe yourself, and then, try to be, educate yourself with a lot of, organization information, or even the police. The easiest number you can call is that 911 to report a situation, and police, they can do their job and take it from there. If, you're able to, there are a number of organizations that you can also call and give the information or contact of the person, and they will take it from there. But while helping someone, you don't want to jeopardize your own life. But I have some other information about some scripts that, you can use. There are other ways you can actually tailor those scripts to fit the way that you will want to, relate to the person who may be going through, some violation or another. So, but you wouldn't read word for word, you will adapt them to fit how you want to be in support of that person. So send me an email and then I'll see what information I can get for you. But if you look through the two websites that I posted in the chat, I'm sure you'll find a lot of toolkit information in there. So now let's go to Jennifer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My question was, is this commemoration females? Like, it's not for males? Because I actually personally know a male who's in a abusive relationship, but I feel like males have a different, not all males that in an abusive relationship. I feel like some males assume like if they're getting abused by their girl, most of the time it's love. And it's like harder or more difficult to talk to them about their situation than it is for a female. Because a female, she's going through abuse, she usually feels unloved. But a male is like they assume automatically that the woman is fighting because she really loves him. So it's a little, it's like, is this only for women?
No, I'll leave. I'll give the floor to Sister Mabel.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I started my presentation, I did say, we're talking about gender-based violence. So this violence, based on your gender, male, female, whatever gender you ascribe to. But when you look at the proportion of violence that happens, because violence normally is about, you know, unequal power distribution. So the person who feels like they have more power economically, psychologically, we want to use it on whoever they perceive to be less of a human. That's why we're saying when you respect women's rights, you will not abuse them. Now, when you come to the situation you're describing, I mean, we know men who are in abusive relationships as well. We know women who think it's okay for the man to beat them because they're showing love, the same, you know, describing the same scenario you're talking about. But then the message is violence is violence. You don't love somebody and violate their rights. You don't love somebody and abuse them verbally. You don't love somebody, but then it's all about education and our socialization. So we're talking about positive masculinity. So even you as the man who is in an abusive relationship, sometimes they'll not report, they get abused. They might think it's loved one, but then they might not report because everybody will think, oh, you're a man. How can a woman, you know, abuse you? So it's about educating ourselves and changing our mindset in terms of, you know, what is an abuse, but sometimes it's so subtle. It doesn't even have to be, it's so subtle, but then the effects are all the same, whether it's a female being abused or it's a man being abused. But then the message we're trying to pass out is abuse of any form of anybody is not right, it's not correct, and it affects all of us. But then when we look at the statistics, who is more likely to be abused? When you look at the when people who are being killed by their intimate partners at a home where it's supposed to be the safest, 45% of them are women. Yes, there are men who are being abused. Yes, you know, the main perpetrators are men against women. Then we have a reverse of scenario. So for me, the same tool that Prof talked about, recognizing it and, you know, reaching out for help, that we do for women, we should do the same for men, because abuse is abuse. It doesn't matter who is, you know, who is the victim and who is the perpetrator of that violence. But oftentimes, if women don't speak up about violence, men will not speak up about violence. Believe me, because of that whole masculinity thing. But if we know people like that, if we know anybody who is in an abusive relationship, whether it's a man being abused by it's not okay. No, it's not love. It's not. There's some African cultures where, you know, the woman would deliberately do something so the man beats them, and they say it's love. We are changing that. It's not love. Abuse is abuse. Yeah. Jennifer, I hope I answered your question. So the same tool and the same technology you'll use to report violence or to approach, you want to use it on if the perpetrator of the violence is female. We have abusive females as well. But when you look at a lot of the violence that happens for women, a big majority of it happens in what I term the private, the private sphere, the home. Male violence sometimes is in the public, it will be on the streets, it will be, probably police brutality and everything. But then for the women that we're saying, the home that is supposed to be a safe space for you, the school that is supposed to be a safe space for you, is the worst place for women. During COVID, when we were all locked down, for some women, it was living hell. There was no escape to the market, there was no escape to school. So it was 24/7 with your abuser. And that's why we had all those statistics going up. Yeah. So let's report violence, let's address it, whether it's a male being violated or it's a female, because respect for me is just it. There's no love. I mean, you can't. Yeah, that's just. I hope I answered your question. I don't know if Remy wants to add something.
Yes, I was just about to chime in to talk about the increase in the number of partner violence during the COVID pandemic. And I'm very glad that you mentioned that, for so many girls around the world, and we're not talking just Black women, because this is a class on, Black women in the Americas, but we're talking, female around the world. The number of partner violence was on the increase during the pandemic because of the lockdown. Many people that you never even knew were being abused in the home, where you think is a safe place for people to come to, or a solace from, escaping the world or the outside, were being abused 24/7. And people were, many young girls and even women were being violated. They were stuck in the home with their abusers 24/7 with nowhere to go. Many of our students also, even many of our students, have, reported many times that they used the, the opportunity to go to school or work as a, escape route from their abuser. So they will only go home to sleep in the night, make sure that everybody was asleep, then they would go home. They would put in many hours of work, go to work, and then from there, quickly go home, do what they need to do, go to school the next day, and don't come home till in the night. But unfortunately, because of the lockdown, many of them were stuck in the same, they were
just like
stuck
kids too.
They were stuck in the same environment. There was no escape route. There was no one to go talk to. There was no place to go hide. So, and the violence only increased, and it's very, very unfortunate that, things like this go on around the world, and more so for the vulnerable populations, that cannot fend for themselves, or when they try to defend themselves or get help, they get abused the more. So
what
it's
if what if a
yes, go
female
ahead,
doesn't want
Kara.
to get help? What if the
Sorry?
female doesn't want to get help?
Well, that's usually because they are afraid. They're feeling that they're not gonna be loved again. And also, in the some of our learning discussion or learning resources, we found that a lot of historical context is, why many people or many women feel this way. Sometimes it may be generational, it may be historical, it may be even
Fair.
Sorry?
Fair.
Yeah, it may be the laws present saying that one gender is better or superior than the other. Even in many communities, you're going to find that, especially traditional communities. We looked at, the cases of pre-colonial African women and found that, women were given a lot of respect in pre-colonial times, but later on, we found that a lot of the policies or the ways in which the society was created during colonization were carried out into post, colonial activities. And even you would not believe that it's the women folk sometimes that would be telling other women, this is what you need to do. This is your place. You need to be below, and, so that he will love you more. And we're not even looking at only, Africa, now shifting to the Americas. That happens in the Caribbean all the time. It happens right here in the US. If you want him to love you, you better, be doing everything that he's saying. Obey him, be submissive. When you're obeying and being submissive, it doesn't mean, to the point where you're beaten to a pulp. It doesn't mean, to be stepped on. It means, respect. But in many communities or many households or in many families, we're not understanding what this means. You work together collectively as a partner, to grow together. But a lot of young females have been psychologically manipulated and emotionally tormented up to the point that they cannot even think on their own again. And, if you ask them anything, they just, look at you like they're zombies, because their thoughts, their emotion, their minds have been beaten out of them up to the point that they don't even want to report it. Even if you try to get them help, because they're afraid the abuse will continue.
Just like Diary in a family reunion in Medea.
Yeah, they keep quiet. Even when you ask, they say, oh no, it's just something, I hit my eye against something, or it was just a little scratch, or they start defending the male partner. He didn't mean it. I must have said something or done something to upset him. But I'm telling you, as my students that I care about, that no matter what you say, no matter what you do, no one has the right to abuse you, okay? You can get help anywhere. You can leave those relationships. If you love someone, love is not abuse. You know, there are many societies where women stay because of, you know, the children that they've had together, or, you know, fearing that no one else is going to want them.
Love them,
Yeah,
right?
no one is going to love them, you know, so they stay in abusive relationships, and instead of escaping and being alive, they stay. The next time you hear, oh, have
They're
you heard
dead.
of XYZ? They're
Yeah.
like, oh, they passed away because the partner abused them so much, they committed suicide, or the partner beat them to death.
Just like the
you-
young lady who died the other day on Atlantic Avenue. The young
Wow.
girl, where her body found in that apartment.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Very,
these
very,
stories,
very
these
sad.
stories are real. These stories are
Yeah.
real. So it's just a challenge to all of us, and to identify it, if we can seek help for those, you know, that we can seek help from. Do it in a tactical way, like Professor Remy said. Just play your part. You know, whatever I can do. If you recognize it in somebody, if they don't hear it from you, then find a way of helping them. It doesn't matter whether it's a male or female. Abuse is abuse. Don't wait until it's too late, because each one of those statistics I talked about, it started with the one slap, it started with the disrespect, and then it progressed and progressed and progressed. Yeah.
So let us hear quickly from, you know, the men in the you know, here today, because a few years ago, one of the themes for the Commission on the Status of Women was on the role of men and boys in ending gender-based violence. So usually, you know, we talk about female abuse, female relationships that, you know, men are abusing them. But a few moments ago, you know, some of the students asked, what if it's the other way around? The two questions that I have is, what if it's the other way around, a female in a relationship abusing or being violent to a male? And what is the role of men and boys? What can both men and boys do to support these 16 days of activism in ending gender-based violence? So I have Kaden and Alvin and Josiah and Mohammed. Yes, Kaden, you can unmute yourself and you can respond to either of the questions. You know, the other way around, female to male abuse and what can be done, or you can respond to the role that both men and boys can play in eliminating gender-based violence. Yes, go ahead, Kaden.
So one of them is like male on female, and the other one is female on male.
Yes.
So I would say that that male on female, I feel like if majority of the time, I would say it's something that has happened like to the guy to make him abusive, because people just don't come out abusive. So he probably had went through certain things. And with female on male, I would say the same thing, because nobody like is just like, oh, I wanna like hurt somebody, you know?
All right,
So,
thank you. Sorry, did you finish?
oh yeah, I'm
okay, thank you so much. Let's go to okay, Jennifer posted maybe childhood trauma. Let's hear from Mohammed.
Can you please repeat the question one more time, Professor?
So the first one is, what if you're a male being abused by a female? What, you know, because usually we hear of men abusing women, you know, because the chances of a male abusing a female is, you know, larger in statistics because of maybe physical prowess or economic, opportunities that men have, and then, they feel that they would dictate and abuse a female all the time. The other question is that, if you have a female that is abusing or being abusive to a male in a relationship or in the family, what can you do, or what would you, do? And the other question is, what do you think the role of men and boys can be in eliminating gender-based violence?
Okay. Okay, that's I think the best solution to eliminate gender violence for men and boys, probably to start reporting facts when violence occur. The best thing to do is to report the police officer on social media, as we have seen before with the Me Too movement. And why not for men to be more educated on gender violence, or educate more the kids on let's say disastrous consequences of violence on women. I mean on all the gender generally, so not only women but men also.
Thank you so much, Mohammed.
So,
Alvin?
Yeah, I'd like to answer the question what men and boys can do in case of like being abused. I would say two things. One, like Mohammed said, was reported. And two, kind of like express to the partner that you're not comfortable. So to communicate first, like, hey, this you're doing something wrong. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be showing the same mutual love that I show you as well. And if that's not the case, then you can always report it and figure something out between the relationship between the male and the female.
Thank you so much, Alvin. Let's go to Josiah.
Yes. In my personal opinion on ending gender violence, inequality violence is, first you must understand, what's the cause of it, For instance, if there's someone in the relationship that's, becomes so toxic to the point where you can't like be comfortable, first you must communicate, with your partner, and then settle that out, because, relationships, can't be maintained without, genuine love, because toxic relationship, it's unhealthy for both partners, both males and females. And if it gets to the point where the violence gets a little too physical and dangerous, that's the stage where it has to get reported to, like the authorities, or, seek professional help. And yeah, that's what my take is on the
Thank you so much, Josiah. In the chat, I see that we have some comments in there. Kara posted earlier, it is very traumatizing, being emotionally abused and not being able to do anything about it. Alvin posted that words do have power, especially in situations where you're not being physically abused, but the power of words, abusing, verbal abuse sometimes is even worse than physical abuse, because those words continue to, you hear in your ear, it turns into trauma, a lot of psychological or even mental, situations later, especially when you're harboring all the abuse in over time and not speaking them out or doing anything, to stop them. And also we have Jennifer. Jennifer said maybe childhood trauma would be some of the causes of why some male or females choose to be violent against others. So before we end the class, I want to hear a call to action. What would each person, or what is each person planning to, what are you planning on doing to help end gender-based violence? What are you planning to do in promoting the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence? What are you planning on doing in continuing to wear orange? How would you wear your orange and then sell the message to others about the 16 days of activism, or how they can get involved, or what you yourself plan on doing? So let's start with Michelle in 1 minute.
Yes, well, I plan on bringing awareness through social media platform like TikTok and WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, because I do have a little social media, and just continue to wear my my orange and just be informative.
Thank you so much. Oma?
I plan on bringing awareness through social media as well, and informing my family and my friends, just to like let them know, and take as many pictures as I can in orange.
Thank you. Jennifer?
My plan is to basically speak life into the people that I personally know that's going through it and posting on social media. I also, I don't know if we have enough time, but I wanted to respond to the feedback that Caden said. I'm not sure if I was a little confused, because I think he said that when a woman gets abused by a male, it's because she did something. And when a male gets abused, like when a male does the abuse, it's because he's going through something. So I was a little confused about that.
He probably was just analyzing what people may think that, about if a woman is abused, the society will say that she did something, versus if a male was being abused, and they will think that maybe something happened, to the female. I don't know. I mean, Kaden, would you like to respond to clarify what you had meant? So we can't hear you, Kaden.
I didn't say that the female had did something. I said that like both parties had probably went through something traumatic in their life. So
yes, okay.
I didn't say anything about that.
Yes, like he did post something in the chat saying that there's probably some traumatic ongoing experience or situation that was not resolved to cause that
I'm sorry,
violence.
but I thought I heard
yes. No.
But just to speak to that though, there's a lot of our socialization that goes into why somebody will stay in an abusive relationship, and why somebody else will report and not somebody else, and why we do what we do. So there's that element of socialization. That's why I talked earlier about positive masculinity. On the continent, if you're a man, then you're big, you beat your wife, but that's not what masculinity is all about. Or if you're a man, you don't cry when when you're in an abusive relationship. That's not what we're talking about. So there's that element of socialization. So we want to go back, start from there. And somebody talked about starting with the kids. I don't know if it was Mohammed. That's where you want to start that conversation, changing their mindsets, changing their orientation. Let's start respecting everybody's rights. Whether you're a 5-year-old boy, the 5-year-old girl has rights. So by the time they become an adult, you don't want to start telling a 40-year-old man that, oh, your wife has rights. So let's start from there.
True. Thank you. Let's go to Kara. You can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Yes, your call to action. How do you plan on promoting the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence? And how do you plan on getting involved yourself?
With the program? You mean with the program?
Yes. How would you raise awareness towards ending gender-based violence?
Well, I could start by giving advice to people who's actually in these situations.
All right, thank you. Let's go to who else haven't I called? Ariel?
I would say that I'll also be using social media as a way to basically bring awareness, but also like Jennifer said, talking to people that I know that have gone through this.
Right, Michelle. Okay, we went to Michelle. Let's do a Josiah.
What was the question?
How do you plan on getting
Oh,
involved or promoting the Stop the Violence Against Women?
well, I plan on spreading awareness through, close ones like relatives, my family, and I'm not really the type to, post stuff on social, like my, status on social media, but I'll just
Well,
keep wearing my
if you
arm.
see somebody being abused, you can do something called 911.
Yeah.
That is a small way to get involved and stopping the abuse or violence,
Yes.
Mohammed, what about you?
Raise awareness, sharing on social media. I think the orange, the color orange is also a kind of small fight. So small but important. So I think, yeah.
Sometimes it's not even about the physical action or the words spoken. You can stage demonstrations, so that others will know that you mean business. Simply wearing all orange and just standing there without even saying anything, it's enough for people to know what that campaign is about. And the more that, we're promoting these campaigns in places like in New York City, and other cities around the world, many, many more people, both male and female, both men and women, both girls and boys, are going to be aware of this campaign on the 16 days of activism against ending gender-based violence, which starts from November 25th and ends on December 10th on the International Human Rights Day. And also, you promote the Orange the World Against Gender-Based Violence, which usually takes place on November 28th of each year. So did we go around? Did everyone contribute to how they plan on getting involved, their call to action? All right, thank you so much, everyone. I'm sure that you've had a very, very good, discussion today with our sister, Mrs. Mabel Ngoe, who is joining us from the organization Sister to Sister International, and my colleague for the last 10 years on a joint panel for each year's Commission on the Status of Women conference, parallel events at the UN. So I want to thank her again for joining us. Let's show our appreciation. Thank you so much. I hope that the videos and the links that she shared with us, you will watch them over, share them with other people, and I'm going to post some of those links again on the actual announcement page for this week on Blackboard. You can use some of this information in your learning discussion, responses every week. And again, stand up against gender-based violence, stand up against abuse, stand up against violations of any type, whether it's you physically or somebody else that you know. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and wishing you a very good rest of the day. Thank you.